Hi guys, Dr. Phillip. This is the lecture on personal statements and cover letters. This is going to be the last lecture for the semester since today is the 17th of April and we're winding down to the end. Remember there are three assignments that you'll need to submit in order to pass the course. You should have handed in or submitted the career assessment assignment. And again, that was pass-fail, same way the course is. If you completed it properly and submitted it, you're fine. And actually, everybody who submitted one up to this point in time has been fine with theirs, so no problems there. The resume or Vita assignment, which was due the end of last week, and if you haven't submitted it yet, please get it in as soon as you can. You still can submit it for credit. Again, please make sure to include an email address along with that if it isn't at the top of the resume or Vita, so that I can send feedback to you, because I won't be able to get to all of them until after the semester's over. And then the third is going to be the vocational presentation, and that is going to be answering all of the criteria or all the questions that are they're the guidelines and they're under course documents. And I've had several questions from students how I want the presentations in what format. You can submit it as a Word document or something along those lines. You can submit it as a PowerPoint presentation if you want, but you don't have to. And you can do it in essay format, or you can do it in bullet format. As long as you're answering the questions fully, that's fine. So if the question is salary expectations, then you can give a range where most of the where sometimes you can give a high and low range. Sometimes you'll get things like 25th to 75th percentiles that'll be measured, but that may not require, certainly an essay may not even require sentences, but you could give the context, whereas duties and responsibilities might be better served in an essay or a few sentences. So I'm open to anything in that fashion where you can answer the question reasonably. That's fine. So, talking today about personal statements and cover letters. Now, personal statements are generally something that you're going to be required to submit for a graduate program. That could be a master's program, a doctoral program, a law school program in law, or what have you. And we'll talk about those in a moment. Cover letters are standard often for jobs. Now, they're not the exact same, but you're going to look to cover the same types of things in them. And we'll talk about what those are in a moment. But cover letters are usually a page to 2 pages, and they talk about why you would be a good fit for the position for which you're applying. Personal statements are often an attempt to explain why you'd be a good fit for that particular graduate program. And that's really one of the things I want to underscore for whether it's a personal statement for graduate school or a cover letter for a job, is what you really want to try and attend to is your fit to that program or job. Okay, and the better that you can make a case for your fit, the more seriously often you are taken in consideration for that program or job. And when we're talking about graduate programs, we're not just talking about why you'd be a good fit for a master's program in developmental psychology, but why you would be a good fit for the master's program in developmental psychology at the University of Texas at Austin or wherever it might be. So it's not just the program in concept, it's that particular program. And the same thing holds true for cover letters. Why would you be a good fit not only for that job as a daycare worker, but why you'd be a good fit for a job as a daycare worker at Dan's Daycare Center, something along those lines. Okay. As far as personal statements go, you're going to hear them often called maybe a few different things. So personal statement is often common. You may hear it referred to as an autobiographical statement, a statement of purpose, something along those lines. But it's generally pretty important to be able to address certain particular issues. Okay. As I mentioned before, kind of first and foremost, your fit to that particular program. Okay. Secondly, the reasons why you're applying. Third, why you're interested in that particular field. Psychology, could be developmental psychology or clinical psychology. It could be law, it could be criminal justice, whatever it is that you're looking to apply to. Why you're interested in that field. What your future plans are. So as I mentioned in the past, trying to give them a sense of why your admittance and participation in that graduate program, working towards a degree in whatever it is, why that will help you work towards your goal of being an attorney if you're applying to law school, obviously. Why you want to go to a particular program. A particular law school might do a lot of work, may have specialty in bankruptcy work as a bankruptcy attorney. You want to kind of mention that. Because if your goal is to be a bankruptcy attorney and they do a good job of that, that's a good fit. So, this becomes a little bit different with jobs, because not all jobs are necessarily looking for what you would be wanting to do in 5 or 10 years. That depends on the nature of the job for which you're applying. Now, when you interview, it's probably a good idea to have an answer to that, whether it's a graduate school program or for a job. So whether you're doing a personal statement or a cover letter. But having a sense of your future plans is a good idea. And then, to some extent, what personal experiences you have and how they fit within the context or the program for which you're applying. Again, that's also true with jobs. How the experiences you've had either in other jobs or in school or in volunteer work or interests that you have, how that fits with the job for which you're applying. So now the truth is, many of these issues may be addressed more than once in your personal statement because they go hand in hand. Additionally, they often intertwine, and so you may need to address more than one of these issues in your personal statement. Now, as for graduate programs, some programs will actually ask you to answer specific essays. Okay, so you will get variety. Many programs will just say, please indicate to us why you are interested in becoming a graduate student in counseling psychology at the University of Anchorage, University of Alaska at Anchorage, or whatever it might be. They don't have a PhD in psychology program, but whatever. So some may give you a very broad sense. Others may ask you very specific things. How do you plan to pay for this? If that's a doctoral program, that may be a very different situation than a master's program. You're much more likely to probably see that kind of question from a master's program, by the way. Because as we talked about before, they don't tend to fund the same way that most doctoral programs do. They may want to know, they may ask specifically what kind of career goals you have down the line, or if you are interested in doing research, and if so, with what professor or professors. So sometimes they will ask you specific things. Other times they will just ask you broadly to indicate why you're interested in graduate work at that particular place. With regard to cover letters, usually you're probably not going to have to address specific questions about the job that are explicitly stated by that company or that business or that entity, but they are going to want to know why you would be a good fit, and that's going to be based on your experiences, less so about your interests, but to some extent your interests and your abilities. In other words, either experiences you've had or training that you've had, something along those lines. So being able to identify those. In both cases, personal statement and cover letter, being able to give examples is often a good piece. And so in your cover letter or in your personal statement, you can often expound a little bit more on some of the information you may have had in your resume. The resume is often meant as a very kind of brief piece where you're giving a reasonably short amount of coverage to a number of topics. In your cover letter, you can maybe pick a couple of those issues, a couple of those jobs or positions or duties and responsibilities or trainings that you've had, and spend a little more time explaining why you would be a good fit because of those experiences or trainings. In a personal statement for graduate school, again, you have a little more latitude to spend a little more time making the case for that fit in a little bit broader or more detailed sense than you would in your vita. But again, goodness of fit is something I always want to kind of underscore. A personal statement is crucial to your application in graduate school. As it says on the overhead notes, it won't supersede the numbers game like GREs and GPA. It won't make up for bad letters of reference. It won't cover up the fact that you don't have any research experience if that's something that's important for the program. So in doctoral programs, for example, it's often very important. But, and I can't underscore this enough, it's instrumental in letting the faculty that are reviewing your application get a sense of who you are and maybe explain to them certain pieces of information that your resume or vita might not be able to explain in quite as much detail. It also allows them to see certain things like your motivation, to really more explicitly explain your interests, because your vita and your resumes are really not going to talk about interests so much as they are going to talk about duties, responsibilities, and trainings. And so giving a sense of your interests, your motivations, why it is that you want to become a psychologist or an attorney or a CPA or whatever it is. And so it can be very important in that piece. It also can underscore the issue of attention to detail. So how well crafted or formulated is your personal statement? Has it been proofread? Does it flow well? Things like that. With cover letters, again, you can certainly look to convey many of these issues. It's not going to A cover letter isn't going to gloss over the fact that you may not have as much experience as some other applicants, but you can make a case for why you would be a better fit, not only based on your experiences, but trainings or interest or motivation or things like that. Okay. So here's some basic guidelines for personal statements and cover letters. First and foremost, it sounds obvious, but use Word or WordPerfect or some sort of word processing program. It's pretty much automatic nowadays, but you'd be surprised. Sometimes people will do it freeform. When in doubt, write. Okay. This is one of the things I try to emphasize to students is, well, if you're having a difficult time trying to figure out exactly how to craft it perfectly, don't worry about that. Just start writing about kind of the first thing that comes to mind as to maybe the early experiences you had that you feel would make you a good fit, or that first got you interested in the field, in this case, of psychology. And that can lead you into experiences that you've had through jobs or volunteer work or personal experiences or trainings or education or what have you. That can lead you into a sense of what you might want to do down the road, or what types of positions you're looking for after graduation, or the types of research that you've done or would like to do. So when in doubt, write. Write about personal experiences, write about your motivations, write about the reasons that you want to attend graduate school in a particular area. You can write about how you feel you'd be a good fit overall, and that in some ways can be meant to demonstrate your knowledge of that program. So the thing is, you can always change something that you've written before you send it. But if you're trying to craft the perfect personal statement or the perfect cover letter right off the bat, you're probably going to find yourself being very frustrated. Now, I tend to be someone who likes to try and write it once and be done with it. But I had this experience when I was doing my my master's thesis and then my dissertation, where instead of trying to write to get it perfect the first time, I just started writing. In fact, what I did is I actually I put a little I forget what it was. It was like, I think it was like 5 or 6 popsicle sticks that I had taped together, and I put it over the backspace key, because if I misspell something, I automatically go to hit backspace to correct it, and I wanted to keep myself from doing that so that I would just write. And I wrote probably 2/3 of my dissertation in a weekend. Now I went back and I had to edit it, and I had to move things around because the flow that I had when I was writing didn't always fit the flow that that document should have, but that's the beauty of computers and word processors. You can move the paragraphs around, you can change things. And so the same thing holds true for cover letters or for personal statements. Write. And so when I was writing personal statements for doctoral work, I just wrote paragraphs. I wrote a paragraph about my early kind of how I got even introduced to the field of psychology. I wrote about some experiences I had in undergraduate work, volunteer work, and so on. I wrote about the jobs that I had after, in between undergraduate and graduate work. I wrote about my master's program and how that helped me kind of gain experience. I wrote about my practicum experiences. I wrote about research that I started doing and research that I wanted to do. So I just started writing. And then I was able to take different paragraphs and craft them and hone them to a particular program. Same thing holds true for cover letters. To start writing about why you think you'd be a good fit for a job in, let's say, for example, as a probation officer. Okay? Why you feel you'd be a good fit for a job as a probation officer. And that can be based on, again, experiences, trainings, classes, work history, volunteer work, beliefs that you have that fit with the idea of being a probation officer. You can write those. Just start writing and explaining those things, trying to emphasize them, because you can always go back, and before you send it off, you can always go back and change things. So first, write about the things that would make you a good fit for that program or that job, and then you can always go back and change, edit, reformat, move things around, and that's fine. The third thing up there is review the programs or jobs to which you're applying so that you can tailor each personal statement or cover letter to each program or job. So you can tailor each personal statement to each graduate program to which you're applying. In fact, you should. You may have the same format for each one, so you may include why you're interested in the field, why you're of psychology, why you're interested in the specific discipline of counseling psychology, the types of research that you've done, or the types of volunteer and job experience that you have, and the type of research you would like to do in graduate school. But then you can hone that depending on the professors that are at each university. So at University of North Florida, you might be interested in doing research with Dr. Fezak because he does a lot of work with anxiety and children, and that's something that you're interested in. Whereas at the University of Florida, you might be interested in doing work with Dr. Carolyn Tucker because she does a lot of work with children, but underprivileged or disadvantaged children and health-related issues. because that might be something in which you're interested. So you can have the same format, but tailor it to each particular program. The same thing holds true for cover letters. You can have the same general format as to why you might be a good fit for a job in management, but tailor each one to the type of job it is and the company that it's in. So, let me see. Is there anything I'm kind of missing on this? But a few other things. There's going to don't just send a stock personal statement to every program or a stock cover letter to every job. They're going to recognize that you're not addressing your fit to that particular program or that particular job, and it's a waste of time, generally speaking, for you and for the HR person or the graduate program coordinator that's reviewing them. I've seen it done in the academic realm and in the employment realm, where it says it doesn't really address why they'd be a good fit for this company. Right in the trash. So try to make sure that you're tailoring it. The difference between two personal statements or two cover letters may be minimal. It may only be a 10% difference. You may have 90% of the same things that you say and tailor 10% of the things to that particular program or that particular job. That's okay, as long as you are making that case for fit for that job or that program. Because the truth is, they don't know what you're writing to any other job or program. They'll just generally be able to tell if you're not making the case for your fit to that job or that program. And that'll, if not disqualify you, certainly knock you down in the potential rankings or possibilities. So, as I mentioned before, make sure to address why that program would be a good fit for you and why you'd be a good fit for that program. Same thing with the job. And give specifics. For graduate programs, that's the programmatic strengths and training or research, and how your experiences might fit with that. For jobs, it might be their focus on certain populations or your understanding of what kind of management needs they may have based on reading their websites and so on. So make a case. Show them that you've looked into and done your research on their program or on their job. Number 4, put together a checklist or an outline of the topics you want to cover in a personal statement. You can do this at the end to make sure that you're actually hitting those, or you can do that beforehand as a way to help structure your personal statement, or to structure your cover letter. Nothing wrong with that. Number 5, after you've written the personal statement or the cover letter, walk away from it for a little while. Don't try and do it the night before that something's due or something that you have to send something out. In fact, this is the kind of thing that you can do literally weeks before and then be able to add things as you think of them. But walk away. Part of the reason is when you've written something, as you're writing it, it makes sense to you. When you walk away from it for a day or two and go back, you have a fresh set of eyes. And your mind is not necessarily in the exact same kind of mindset that it was when you were writing. And that allows you to be able to kind of look at that personal statement or look at that cover letter with a fresh set of eyes. And you might, as you're looking at it, you might go, I don't think I made a good link between the program and my experiences, or in reading the statement, it seems like I expect that they should know this piece of information when in fact they don't. So walk away from it, reread it after a couple of days or a week, or if you've got the time. And in that time frame, you might think of other things or other pieces that you might want to add, or you might want to remove something that you might think is not appropriate or doesn't really talk about, it's not pertinent. So go back and proofread it yourself. That's kind of this number 6 on the notes. Are you addressing the issues that either you wanted to address or that the graduate program may have requested? You also want to check for grammar and editing. So punctuation, run-on sentences, word choice, general grammar issues like don't end a sentence in a preposition, are you dangling your participles, are you splitting your infinitives, things like that. If you don't know whether you're doing that, that's part of the reason. It's one of the good things about Word or any of the other word processing programs is that you can do those checks, spell and grammar checks, and get a sense. Number 7, have other people proofread it. Choose these people wisely. Don't let just some yahoo that just some idiot proofread it. You want to try and choose the people who are going to be able to read it with a discerning eye. Professors are often good people to go to, because professors in that field or those fields, depending on the fields to which you're applying, because they're going to be able to either identify certain issues that you may have missed, or things you may have gotten wrong because you may have thought it meant one thing and it means something else. Additionally, they're going to be able to help you kind of hone in maybe a little bit more on the fit issue. But other people, mentors, supervisors that you had, people that you respect and think will spend a reasonable amount of time proofreading it and be able to give you reasonably good constructive feedback. This is true, again, with a cover letter, to have maybe a boss or a supervisor or someone who you used to work for kind of read over it, because they can at least give you their take on, well, you should really address this issue. You should really address in a job that might be the hours that you're willing to work, because in this field it's all about your flexibility. Okay, well, that's an important piece. I didn't really think of it that way. Again, you want them to be able to help you recognize, are you getting the issues across that you wanted to? Are you clear in the information that you are expressing? So are you clearly explaining the experiences that you've had and how that fits with the program? You also want to have them try and give you feedback on the flow of the personal statement. Cover letters can be a little choppier, actually, but there's often a flow to them as well. But do you move from topic to topic reasonably well? Does it make sense, the flow that you're so you might go with how you first got interested in psychology, and then classes you took that you felt were important in your understanding, volunteer work that you did, research that you conducted, so that you're all kind of crafting this from kind of the broader to the more specific pieces that are going to fit. In jobs, it might be kind of your overall kind of employment experience, and then maybe one or two jobs that really kind of strike out to the business to which you're applying in the fit because of a particular set of skills that you had to develop, or a particular set of duties that you held. Okay. You want to get feedback as to whether or not you are creating a good, solid case as to why you are a good fit for that program or for that job. How strong of a case does it build? Okay. One of the things to touch base on, and this is particularly true in the personal statement arena, one of the things to consider is how much personal information are you inserting. So I've reviewed applications for master's programs and doctoral programs, even pre-doctoral interns. And one of the things that in the psychology field people often do is they may disclose certain experiences in their own lives that cause them to be very interested in or motivated for graduate work in counseling, let's say. So I can think of a student or at the time was a potential student, who talked about their eating disordered history, okay, and how that, their process of going through having an eating disorder and their therapy and the work they really have had to put into being able to resolve those issues as well as they can and not hold them back and feel healthier and be healthier and so on. They felt that was an important piece for them to include in their application. For some professors, some people reading that's going to be a good, honest piece that's going to address their fit, that's going to address why they would be well qualified for that particular program. For others, it may be more TMI, too much information. That for some professors it means that maybe they haven't resolved everything, or maybe they're doing this more for their own purposes, and it's more therapeutic than it is training to become a therapist. So you want to be judicious about what information you offer, and if you choose to offer that. I had another student who talked about their sexual abuse and how their sexual abuse really caused a lot of difficulty for them when they were in high school, but then they got therapy, they were able to work on it, and now they feel very motivated in trying to help others who may have had similar experiences. Again, whether you're going to include that or not should be up to you. There are reasons to include that kind of stuff. There are certainly reasons not to. And so to talk with your mentor or mentors and get kind of feedback on that. But at least be aware. Some people may see that as being too much information, and that may not be a good thing. And again, well, before I get to that, for jobs that's a little bit less important, but in jobs generally you probably are going to be even less likely to want to include more detailed, intimate personal information like that, because very often that's just too much information for jobs, depending on what the job is, but most of the time. Again, and you also want to get some feedback on things like grammar and punctuation and editing and so on. Number 8, present yourself in a positive light. So, again, tailor the statement, but don't overestimate or embellish your experiences. Okay? So, the same thing that kind of we talked about in the resume or vita. Don't lie, and don't make it seem like you have done substantially more than you have done. With respect to graduate programs, most are not expecting you to have had extensive experience in the field as an undergraduate. Okay, they usually recognize you're going to have some experiences, and so trying to get a sense of what those experiences are and how they might fit, that's what's important. But don't if you don't have 2 publications and haven't done volunteer work and gotten trained by the crisis center and all this kind of stuff, then don't feel that you have to put things down or overestimate your responsibilities. Speak honestly about that. As for jobs, they may expect you to have certain experiences or abilities. If you don't have them, it's a dicey situation for you to say that you do, because you're going to have to demonstrate them. And if you don't, you'll get fired, and you can pretty much kiss that entity as a letter of rec in the future. And you don't generally want to say that you got fired from jobs if you don't have to. So try not to overestimate or overstate your experiences, because that can come to bite you in the ass in the end. And lastly, length. Usually, for personal statements, it's going to vary. I'd usually say about 2 to 3 pages is probably a good range. When I was applying, there was one program that I'd heard if you anything more than 1 page, and they won't read it. And then there are others that will expect you to. They may have several essays and will take 5 or 6 pages. Be that as it may, usually 2 to 3 pages is probably a good length for a personal statement. Cover letter, 1 to 2 pages. Okay, don't need it to be nearly as extensive. You're looking to maybe, again, hit the high points on a couple of experiences or jobs, maybe a goal or two that you have, and emphasize those pieces. Okay? Since this is likely the last lecture, I'll say that, honestly, this is, as I mentioned, I think the first lecture. This is the first time I've taught a course fully online like this. I did an online course years ago at the University of Florida, but that was didn't involve quite the same amount of live lecture material, and then last semester, well, yeah, last spring, I had to finish up a history of psychology course online, but that was only maybe about the last 3 weeks of classes, so it was a little bit, it certainly wasn't quite as extensive. And I wanted to say that on the whole, it's been a pleasure having you all as online students. I'd like to apologize for a lot of the computer-based problems that we've had in the class over this semester. Not because it's my fault or it's anybody's fault in particular, but I know that to some extent it's probably caused some of you a little bit more anxiety than you needed, and may not have made communication as forthcoming as I would have liked. I've had some ongoing problems with my email account, and as well as some problems with the encoding of grades on Blackboard. Don't worry, as I mentioned, everybody who submitted everyone who submitted a career assessment assignment did fine on it, so there's no problems on that. And looking over some of just the first few of resumes or Vitas that I've seen, they've also been good. Again, the resume and Vita assignment, it was as much about helping you get started and really thinking about the types of things you want to include as anything else. So, and I have all confidence in y'all as well for the vocational presentation. As long as you address the questions that are in that attachment that I have under course documents, as long as you address those, you'll be fine. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. And I think I extended the deadline until next Wednesday for your vocational presentation, so you've got until I think a week from today, which would make it the 24th. I will open up a portal so that you can submit it today, or starting today or tomorrow. But in any case, it's been a pleasure having everyone in class. I wish you the best of luck with your finals, and for those of you who are graduating, congratulations. And best of luck out in outside of UNF and out in the either the job hunting or graduate program attending world. Okay, take care. Thanks. Bye bye.